My favourite Christmas melody is a 2021 Christmas film directed by Michael Kennedy, written by John Brekhus and Lauren Balson Carter, and it stars Mya as Abby and Rainbow Sun Francks as Travis. And I have to say, I really enjoyed this. There was one point where I feel like the narrative was maybe trying a little too hard, but not so much that it affected my overall enjoyment or anything. I might explain the bit that I mean with a spoiler warning, as it's something that happens towards the end. But for the most part, this will be spoiler free. So Abby writes commercials, songs for commercials, and she's not really feeling inspired to write her own Christmas music, which is what she really wants to be doing. So she goes back home for the holidays, and she's staying with her mother, and her mother happens to work in a school. So her mother tells her to, go along and meet her there for lunch. And while there, Abby bumps into the school's music teacher, Travis. And there we have our classic will they, won't they Christmas rom-com. And they don't necessarily hit it off to begin with, then things go well, and then things get rocky for them. I think generally the way that relationship went was good, apart from one thing that I've already touched upon, which I might go into detail about soon. And the music class, this particular class, are practicing for the Christmas pageant, and Abby is kind of roped in to help them out. And some of them are more enthusiastic than others, some of them are having a better time than others. But it's not just having fun that's important here, because it's possible that the funding for the arts programme will be pulled, and unless they put on a really great show, there's not going to be any evidence that it's worth keeping the programme. And the film does a really great job of showing primarily music, how beneficial it can be, what it can bring to people, how passionate people can become about it. But in general, it's a great support of the arts and a great way of showing, look, kids can enjoy this, kids can do this, it can be beneficial, it can help their confidence, it can bring them together. Stop scrapping arts fundings, because whenever there are budget cuts, usually the art programs are the first ones to go. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it. So I think the film did a really great job of supporting the arts, specifically music, and with some really wonderful songs. We do have some classic Christmas songs in this, but there are some original songs that I thought were really delightful and really addictive, and songs that I would not ever put on a classic Christmas playlist, but certainly songs that I'd be quite happy to listen to. I really enjoyed them. The characters are all really likeable, which is not always the case when it comes to Christmas films like this. Sometimes the protagonist can be really irritating, because, obviously they sometimes make bad decisions, or they don't look at things clearly, and that's the journey they're on, but sometimes that behaviour can be really annoying. But I found with Abby that she was actually really likeable, apart from one thing. So I guess I'll discuss now this last point, this thing in the narrative that I felt like it was almost like the narrative was trying too hard. As it entered the final third of the film, I feel like the narrative kind of went, okay, we need to throw something else in here. What shall we do? And I didn't necessarily find it quite as believable. So I will say, before I give the spoiler, I will say it didn't affect my enjoyment of the film. It was a momentary irritation more than anything else, and ultimately I really enjoyed it. If you're looking for a Christmas film that's an easy watch, that's got some great music, really good, acting, casting, on-screen chemistries are all great, I really recommend it. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't mind watching it again. So the last thing, a spoiler, kind of a big spoiler for something that happens, and towards the end of the film, I think it's roughly the final third, Abby overhears Travis on the phone, and she thinks that he's sending their song out, and she'd been hurt in the past. We learn this at the beginning of the film. Somebody had done something similar to her in a way that really annoyed me, and I actually don't know if it's realistic or not, because when that singer stole her song, and apparently the lawyer said there's nothing they can do, I feel like that's not true, because there must be a paper trail. She must have written records of her songs. Put it this way, before you ever let anybody in the public see your art, so if you're singing songs, have a digital copy backed up, date stamped digital copy, so that you can say, I wrote these lyrics long before that person ever did, and here's the proof. So a little tip, it's what I do, obviously. I write my novels digitally, I don't do it by hand. But if, for example, you wrote songs by hand, have a digital copy before you put the song out there, or even a digital copy of the recording that's date stamped, so you've got evidence that you had that song before they did. So I can understand when she heard Travis on the phone that she kind of thought, oh, this is happening again. But I don't believe she would have jumped to that conclusion and immediately gave him the cold shoulder. I think it would have been more realistic for her to confront him. Because if you think somebody's just abused your trust and hurt you this way, you wouldn't just walk away from it. You absolutely would not. You would confront them about it, especially if you have to keep seeing them. And if you think they've done something with something you've co-created, then again, you would confront them. You wouldn't say, oh, well, you've hurt me, but there you go, you can have the song and I'll just get on with my life and be in a mood. So I don't believe her actions. I don't believe it was convincing. And I also don't feel like it was necessary. I think the film was going in a really good direction. Yes, there often has to be conflict towards the end of the film to keep things interesting, but there were further issues with the performance that happened afterwards that were maybe a bit more realistic. So I don't think they needed that. I really don't. I think things could have flowed continually in a really nice direction without including that. But as I said, it wasn't enough to stop my overall enjoyment of the film, just something that I think needed to be either done differently or just not have been included at all. But either way, ultimately, I really liked my favourite Christmas melody. I generally had a lot of fun with it.